So I'm going to talk about 4 people that I consider futurists. Some of them actually call themselves futurists. My favorite is Thomas Fry. So we know that in the traditional occupations, in many cases, there's a lot of competition. So if you were to take, for example, teaching. Right now, to get a teaching job in Toronto would be very difficult. Maybe they're hiring some elementary teachers, but very few secondary teachers. Not too many retirements. Not too many maternity leaves. All around, that is creating there's an oversupply of people that have teaching certificates and positions available for that. However, so we need to look beyond these traditional occupations sometimes, and where, if we're living in what's now called a knowledge economy, being a teacher outside of the classroom is probably very important. So you have to look creatively on where those skills can be used. So Thomas Fry says, look at the cultural, demographic, societal, and economic shifts, and seeing them as they develop, so that you can jump sort of on the wave to finding new opportunities, making business out of those opportunities. So understanding the future. In the next 10 years, most of us probably in this room have a smartphone. And especially with young people, on their smartphone, they have many apps. I'm still getting used to the word apps. There are many people who create apps, and they make good money doing that. And the prediction is there are going to be more apps than books in the years to come. You can use your smartphone to measure your blood pressure, heart rate, ultrasound. I'm wearing an activity tracker. It tracks my in the morning. I can look at my smartphone and it tells how well I slept last night, along with how much exercise I'm getting. But all kinds of other things. So the smartphones are very powerful devices. More things you can do with it. The Internet of Things, more and more everything is connected through the Internet. In terms of how we do business, many people are now working on contract. You hire a bunch of people to do something, they work on it. When it's finished, people are gone to look for other jobs. So you have business colonies, and there are fewer jobs that are permanent. So let's take an example of a couple of areas that you can imagine are changing. Drones. How many of you have seen a drone already in your park or in your neighborhood?
Yeah. Somebody was taking photos from the drone of the whole park. Well,
yeah.
An event was happening.
So there were some people playing with the drone in our backyard last summer. And drones, as you know, Amazon is thinking of delivering books using drones. So Thomas Fry says, before we could have drone delivery, there are 37 critical problems that need to be solved. So you need all kinds of regulations so that they don't crash into one another, they don't crash into... I like the funniest one is that people don't use the drones for target practice. So if you have your $1,000 drone going someplace, you don't want somebody shooting it down. So it's expanding. We have some fabulous photography already using drones, used a lot for military, used now for rescue missions. So you need all kinds of ways to make drones a possibility, a practical possibility in today's society. As you've heard about driverless cars, we're not calling them driverless because people are getting too afraid of that. But many car companies have assisted driving that'll, for example, park your car for you and so forth. So he has a very good website called Futurist Speaker, which is excellent. I strongly recommend it. He appeared in one of the Doc Zone things, and this is the connection. So if you get the PowerPoint, you'll be able to hear him speak. So here are a few other things that he has to say. 24 future industries that are going to create a lot of new jobs. And in many of these situations, people will have some kind of traditional education, and they will use that to do the kind of things that need to be done in that field. So water harvesting. One of the big issues we have globally is there are many parts of the world that do not have drinkable fresh water. Even places like California are having big water problems. So atmospheric water harvesting is one of the things. Drone industry, we talked about. Software developers. A lot of banking, for example, they were some of the first to use software. Their software is now becoming dated. It has to be rewritten. So people are going to be rewriting code for a lot of financial institutions, mobile apps. We're going to have sensors of all sorts so that we will be able to wear something that is going to be comfortable, but will monitor our health. Right now, cars have a huge number of sensors to make sure that they're efficient and so forth. 3D printing is going to change manufacturing, and has changed the manufacturing a lot already. It used to take a while before you would design a car and then be able to see what it looks like. Through 3D printing, they can shorten the time it would have taken a year or two. They can shorten it now to several months in many situations. I won't go through all of them, but so there are 24. Even here, I've only listed some of them. LED for lighting, big data. As you know, that's becoming a big issue now. Is that for security, it's possible to gather enormous amounts of data and to use that for marketing, use that for security, and use that maybe for things that are not so good. Mass energy storage, being able to store electricity. For example, you have it, solar panels in the daytime, storage so that you can use it throughout the night. Microgrids, so that you avoid blackouts in huge areas. Hyperspeed transportation systems. They are experimenting with vacuum tubes for locomotion, so that you can have speeds that are faster than planes. Driverless everything. Now, here's the part that I find the most fascinating. As a result of new technology and new inventions, about 2 billion jobs will disappear. And we see that happening especially in manufacturing. It's not that we're manufacturing less. We don't need that many people because of robotics. But he says for each one that disappears, 2.6 new jobs will be created. So that's very, to me, he says, wow, that's, I like believing that. Okay, so that was Thomas Frey. Jack Aldrich, his full field is especially in terms of technology. And as we know, a lot of things have changed very quickly in our time. He says jump the curve. See the new things coming on. get on board early on, and then you've got great possibilities as you go along. And the other thing is, he says we need to unlearn a lot of things. The reason we are sometimes not creative and inventive is because we're still bound with what we've learned, and we don't go out of that box. One of the things is perhaps university is not necessarily the best place for everything, learning many things. There are other places to learn, and that's one of the disappointments, is a number of people have gone to university, figured this guarantees me a well-paying job, and in many cases it does, but it's not a guarantee. More and more, a lot of the learning is being done by doing, so you need usually certainly a high school education, maybe some additional training through apprenticeship or skilled trades, and then you learn more by doing. So a lot of the inventors, like Facebook, Google, the people had, Bill Gates, they had a foundation of learning, but then they took it to a whole new level through their creativity and inventions. One of the things I like here, what we don't know may be more important than what we do know at this time. Imagination, perhaps, is going to be more important than knowledge. So here's an example here in Toronto. This is Gary Bader. He has invented this handheld device to read your DNA. So with the genome, we can do enormous things in terms of health. Ordinarily, you would use a genome sequencer that costs about $750,000. He has produced this that costs about $1,000. In his company, he has a whole bunch of people that are there as learning interns. He's teaching them what he knows. He's also hired people that are in biology, that are in computer science. So you've got, in creating something like this, a whole team of people that are working on this, and eventually this will be sold all around the world, and will have many uses. So also, Jack Aldrich talks about these technologies that are advancing very quickly, and most of these I think you're quite familiar with. Many of them have been. So what I find fascinating is you can buy a 3D printer at Staples. You can go to, there are people that have set up stores with 3D printers that you can take your stuff to. The thing I find the most fascinating is they are experimenting with using 3D printers to build houses. And they expect in the years to come, if they are able to build houses using these 3D printers, which look almost like a humongous machine. Yeah.
I just wanted to also make a comment about your previous slide where you said what may be more valuable is what you don't know rather than what you do know. Because I was just volunteering as a parent in a grade 3 classroom for scientists in the classroom, and children were told to read a short paragraph and then write down what it meant on a few sentences. And what really surprised me was that what almost every child in my group did, 6 kids, is they just copied what they read, and they copied everything word for word.
Yes.
And then I asked them, do you know what that means? And they didn't, to them it was only important to get the right answer.
Yeah.
And what struck me is that, at that, 8, 9 years old, they didn't know how to think creatively around the question.
Yes.
And that was a little bit surprising, a little bit sad. Is that critical thinking,
Yes.
or condensing the information and distilling.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
The challenge is that at that age, you want to be working on it. And I think it's a bit young to be expecting some of that, but the key piece of it is, number one, you need to have deep comprehension in order to summarize in your own words. And I think that, that step was something that they found very difficult. And
Is
but
that a
that's a
higher,
good point.
is that a higher skill for like 12 and up, or am I just too demanding?
I'm not a specialist on that, but I think that's an important question. So a lot of the teaching we have to do has to be age appropriate, and at the same time there are students that are beyond their age in some of their skills and abilities. So, yeah. At any rate, artificial intelligence, that's getting quite a bit of discussion nowadays. But we have, our computing systems are extremely powerful for big data, extremely powerful with the genome, for example. There's so much information that it used to would take months, years to process, can now be done with these supercomputers in a matter of a day or less, which they're using now for cancer treatment, for all kinds of specializations. So here's one of the fields that he mentioned is nanotechnology, and he says that'll create up to 2 million new jobs. Some of the things that are happening with nanotechnology is they're able to produce new materials. One of them is graphene. You'll be able to recharge an electric car in 30 seconds instead of 4 hours. Nanosensors to detect cancer cells, and then send capsules to kill just those cancer cells. To administer gene therapy. Implanted devices to prevent and treat diseases. Solar cells that are much more efficient than current ones. Be able to use hydrogen cells much more productively and so forth. So very amazing things are taking place in just one field. So for example, if you want to study nanotechnology, you can go to the University of Waterloo, and they have a specialization in engineering for nanotechnology. Thomas Friedman is a journalist, works mainly for the New York Times. So yeah, he's more of a journalist than a futurist, but he's written a book that you may have heard about, The World is Flat, and that's about all the global competition that is ongoing. He says some of the best jobs are in the trades because you can't offshore it. So it has improved the lives of many people around the world, but as we know in Bangladesh and things like that, some of the job opportunities they've had have also been still quite hurting their health and things like that. He came up with another book more recently in 2008, and he says there are 5 key global problems that we need to address. So energy, there are countries that have oil. I heard the remark that some countries in Africa are lucky if they don't have diamonds or oil because nobody bothers them. Climate change, there's energy poverty in many parts of the world. We've got biodiversity. He says a lot of what we can do globally, productively, economically, is to be able to develop more green technologies and to export those. I think Ontario, in trying to go into solar and especially wind power, was trying to be a leader in that, and it's run into a lot of problems though, but it's making an effort for that. So he says we're in a new era of energy and climate. Those are sort of our 2 key needs. Another futurist lives here in Toronto is Tapscott, and written quite a few books. He says that we are in the age of networked intelligence, and people are collaborating with openness, sharing, integrity, and interdependence. So there's a new sort of culture among a lot of young people who are more willing to share and collaborate on things. And he has an excellent book called Macroeconomics. And so one of the challenges I think you and your teams face is, well, it's just an enormous amount of information. Part of it is choosing one field, a field or two where you have an interest, and then going into more depth. So you might say are interested in news media, music, TV, and film. Then you read a chapter in Don Tapscott's book of macroeconomics, and he says, here's what it might look like in the next 20 years. And then you have an opportunity to see what your traditional work is and where it might be in the years to come. I think the Mars buildings have been in the news quite a bit in Toronto. So again, I think Ontario is trying to be innovative and to move ahead. So one of the things that they are putting together there is people that have high-tech ideas, putting them together with the banks and venture capitalists, and seeing how they might work together to make things go ahead. So, you want to be creative, brainstorming opportunities. So, I think our young people do get excited when they talk about these future possibilities. It gives them an opportunity to take control and perhaps be more running their own initiatives, their own businesses. And this is a situation where you have global demands. And if you are able to produce solutions for those global demands, I believe you become a very valuable asset in the field of economy, in the field of work. So the key thing is is to think globally and prepare for that. So once again, I'd like to pause for 5 or 10 minutes for people to have a chance to share with one another. How do you think our teams are preparing for a new future?